Okay, today we're going to delve deeper into the relevant halachas of eating matzah and maror. First time we have it at the Seder. Motzei, matzah, and maror, those two simanim. Yesterday we discussed a very brief recap how we hold all three matzahs, say the bracha of hamotzi lechem min haaretz, drop the bottom matzah, and then say the bracha of al achilas matzah. And then we eat the top matzah and the middle one, which is broken. Just forgot to say one thing yesterday. Some hold you actually don't need to drop the bottom matzah, but the general halacha is not that way. Most poskim do not say that way. The halacha is that you should drop the bottom matzah after you say the bracha v'motzi lechem min haaretz. The Torah over here says, since there are some who say to make the bracha on the broken piece of matzah, hamotzi, and in the full one, al achilas matzah, complete one. Therefore, someone who wants to go according to both opinions should hold both of them in his hand and make the bracha of hamotzi and achilas matzah immediately one after another, and then afterwards cut from both of them together. Right? In other words, what we do over here and how we drop the third matzah is based on a very complicated technicalities of making brachos on whole matzahs versus not. We kind of do a compromise. That's basically where it comes from. That's the idea. Right? The Torah has a different cheshbon. I know. Just if we would study that topic in particular, it would take time and the history of how it got to what we do to drop the third matzah. But that is the ruling of the Mishnah Berurah. That's how most posts can go at the end of the day. You say hamotzi on the top two, drop the bottom, and then on the bottom you say al chilas matzah. Then the Torah had something new. The yochel behaseba. You got to eat the matzah while you're reclining on your left side. V'im lo hesiv lo yatsa. If you didn't recline, you wouldn't fulfill your obligation. Even a lefty has to recline on his left side. So there are other halachas in previous simon. V'sarach le'echel pam acheres behaseba. You got to eat another time while reclining. Rav Amram says, make the bracha of hamotzi, and then afterwards you should dip it in the charoses and eat it. That's what the Rambam says. Says the Torah, I don't know what the point is of the charoses. And say for Baal Haman, gets another question. The matzah is a zecher lecheres. It commemorates the freedom. The charoses, one explanation is zecher letit. We could actually have a whole separate session just on charoses, but we're not going to do it. We're just going to learn everything straight. The charoses commemorates the type of cement that they would use back then. That's one explanation, what it remembers. How could you connect something? How could you connect two polar opposites over here? We're talking about connecting the matzah, which represents freedom, to the charoses, which represents slavery. Furthermore, the matzah is midorais, is an obligation from the Torah. The charoses is an obligation; it's a rabbinic obligation. It's midrabanan. So now, asi charoses derabanan mevatel matzah daraisa. The charoses will come along, which the obligation is rabbinic at best, and nullify, cancel the matzah, which is daraisa. Then he says afterwards, you take a kazayis of maror, yashkienu kulu b'charoses, and you completely insert it. Submerge it is the better word, in the charoses. But don't delay it in the charoses. Don't leave it in there too long, because then that will cancel the flavor for the maror. Rabbeinu Yonah writes that you need to shake off the charoses so that it won't nullify the flavor of the maror. Then he says you make a bracha, alachilas maror, and you eat it without reclining. And don't make the brei pri adam on it. You'll say, maror is a vegetable. Why didn't I say brei pri adama? You don't do it over here. The Rashbam explains the maror is already covered and exempted from the Brit Adama that we made back by Karpas, but the Tibul Rishon, the first dipping. And that's why you don't say Brit Nefashos after the first dipping. That's another sugyan of itself. The Re says that you need to say Brit Nefashos after. Why don't we do it? Why don't we say a Brit Adama on the maror? We obviously don't hold that you make a Brit Nefashos after the Karpas. But that's why we try to eat less than a kazayas to get out of the Shiloh well-known halacha, because it's printed in every single Haggadah. That's the only reason why people know these halachas, because they read the little notes that it says in the halachas, but they never have a full understanding, and they don't
What would
have
happen if you,
details.
would it help if you just had the carpus during the Suda?
Wait 1 minute. Thank you. The Re says that you need to make the bracha brain of fashos after, and that which the reason why we don't say a Brei Pri Adama on the maror or an Adama, again, according to him, you would need to say an Adama perhaps because you said a Brei Nefashos before. You can't use the Bracha Rishona from Karpas for the maror. So the reason why we don't say a Brei Pri Adama on the maror is because it's considered Dvarim Habayim Machmas Asuda B'Seichasuda, the items that are coming during the meal, that's for the meal, in which case you wouldn't need to say a Bracha. Why don't we make a bracha on the charosis even though it's a mitzvah? The answer is because it's tafel. Tafel to the maror. It's secondary to the maror. Question. David?
I'm mute now.
Yeah.
Yeah, question.
So wait, what would have would it help if we had carpus after we have the matzah? Let's say we have more than kazayas.
It's not the order though.
No, but we have potato or whatever we have during the Suda.
The karpas is supposed to be after orchatz.
I understand, but if you have the reason why they say you potentially have less than a kazayas, you don't have a chiyuv of brain fashos, right? Is that right?
No.
No, wait, you don't
That
have a.
bracha of karpas is going to be covering the maror later on. That's a different topic. It's in a different simon where it gets discussed a lot more.
All right.
Yeah.
No, just the whole thing. We said Hesach Hadas beforehand. How come there's no Hesach Hadas by Karpas? It's a whole. We just said that, by the Urchatz, it doesn't cover Rechitza for the motzei because it has a Hadas. Now we're saying that there's no Hesach Hadas by the Karpas. For that answer, it's a hard.
There's no hesach hadas to the degree that you won't need to say a new bracha.
There's no Hesach Hadas bracha, but there's enough Hesach Hadas for Rechitza. I don't know.
There's enough hesach hadas for a chitza, correct?
We're saying there are different levels of Hesach Hadas.
Correct. I mean, in Lamdis, perhaps one could say you don't need to make a bracha, the Brei Pri Adama and the maror b'lav hachi, number one, because of what we just said. Maybe it's considered items that are coming in the Suda.
Right. So that
Number two, it's not coming for birchas hanen, and no one's eating maror to get pleasure from that. It's a birchas mitzvah, in which case you just say alachilas matzah. But anyway, that's more of a maror discussion.
Right.
The reason why it's coming up over here is because we're really talking about the quantity.
Right. I two questions.
Yeah.
So according to what the Torah said, Bisman Beis Hamikdash, when Maror is a daraisa, we will not be able to dip into the charosas.
Okay.
Because because the bug, I don't know. And then the second thing is, it's interesting that the whole reason matbilin is because
where did we see that line with the Beis Hamikdash?
No, we didn't say that anyway. He just said that you can't dip the matzah into the charosas because we vatal the tam, right?
No, that was nothing. No, the charosas would still be derabanan. The maror would be deraisa.
So that's what I'm saying. So you won't be able to dip the maror into the charosas bisman beis hamikdash,
right?
Because the maror would be a deraisa.
Right.
According to that logic.
The truth is, this whole charosas, there's a lot to talk about. Why exactly are we doing it? And if we're doing it in the Seder, why don't we do it the rest of the year? Okay. What's the second question?
And the second, I guess, question is the whole thing about matbilin, right? Matbilin shtei pa'amim, right? Because we want to look like free men, right? So you have the reason the charosis itself is a slavery thing, which we don't want to, do with the matzah, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yes, sir.
But the matbilin itself is a freedom thing. So
correct.
If there's really, you should be, It's like
It depends what you're being matmil,
depends what you're being.
what you're dipping, what
Well,
you're being tova.
right, but the charos is part of the shtei pavim, right? When we say matbil and shtei pavim, we're talking about the karpas, and
Right,
we're talking about
right, right,
the
right,
korech, or we're talking about
right. Oh, I
the.
hear what you're saying. There's other reasons for charosis other than just zeichel.
No,
Right.
but
That's
but
the general reason. That is the main
because he's
reason there.
bringing up. I'm saying
Yeah,
that
yeah,
he's
yeah.
saying it because of that, but
Right.
it's still a freedom thing in itself.
Interesting. Right. It's
Okay.
kind of both, quasi. Okay, it's a good point. It's a good ha'ara. Should eat the matzah first. Ein mavir no mitzvahs. You don't want to do mitzvahs in bundles. Okay, what does he talk about over here? If you didn't recline, you're not yotze. You have to recline when you eat matzah. There's a big problem with a lot of people at a lot of seders. Even the Jews who refer to themselves as Shomer Shabbos Jews. What I've personally become aware of is that for some reason people don't like reclining. Makes no sense to me. I don't know if anyone who's listening to this has ever experienced or heard of such a idea. People are just used to not reclining. I don't know what it is. The Mordechai, who's a Gemara in Pesachim Kovches, says that if someone ate a kezayis matzah when he was reclining, a shamish servant, he's yotze, which implies that mashma mesiv ein lo mesiv lo. Only if you're reclining, you're going to fulfill your obligation. However, in Siman Taf Ayin Beis, there's a Rav Yah who says that in our places, we don't need to return and eat again to recline. It's just a mitzvah min hamuvchar. We hold at the end of the day, you need to recline. That's a separate major discussion in of itself. If you want to do more of a deep dive, we learned that in the past. It's in Siman Taf Ayin Beis. So
We've already had like 5 major discussions. That's pretty amazing.
well, this sif is very, very long. This sif, we're jumping in 2 weeks before Pesach.
I know.
Basically do this in the middle, smack in the middle of Hilchos Pesach. I've not only learned Hilchos Pesach, but I've give shiurim on Hilchos Pesach. So I just want to show you, this isn't my first time over here. I'm very comfortable with this area of halacha. And I've studied it. If you take a look over here, this is rabbiblon.com in the Mishnah Brewer section. You have starting from over here, Siman 471. This is all Hilchos, all the halachas of the Seder, they start right here. 472, this is all about like reclining, this whole thing. 473, this is the maror. I mean, this is real. This is all of the halachas of the Seder right over here. This goes into Siyas Omer. But this over here is straight up all the halachas of the Seder right here. It's around 40 shiurim that I gave. This is from around 10 years ago, whenever the exact date was. But the idea is that there's a lot of major concepts that we are discussing over here. So that whole reclining business, that was a major discussion. We're going to touch upon it more exactly halacha l'maisa if you didn't recline. You definitely have to go back though. You really don't fulfill your obligation. It counts as if you didn't even eat it. So it's no joke, right?
Well,
It's
and to recline, you got to know how to.
What?
We have to know how, the proper way to. I'm a lefty, but it's not. It really. I'm a lefty, but it's not.
Still recline on the left. Already answered that one.
But how much to recline and like.
How much? Very simple. You recline as comfortable as it is to you. You have to recline. You have to do something. All right, we're not learning the halachas of reclining now, but what we're learning is if you didn't do it, then it wouldn't be good, and we're going to see more about that. The Beis Yosef quotes Rashi and says you should eat the maror without reclining because it's Zecher La'avdus. It commemorates the slavery in Mitzrayim. If you want to eat while you're reclining, says the Beis Yosef, you're allowed to. We're going to see that the Mishnah Berurah is actually going to paskin like this. If you ever want to surprise a person with a halacha, because they don't print this in any Haggadah, you could say, if you recline for maror, would you still fulfill your obligation of eating maror? Simple question, simple answer. The answer is yes. We're going to see that the Mishnah Berurah himself, if I'm not mistaken, will paskin this way. This is the Beis Yosef. Beis Yosef says nearly, I'll show you the Mishnah Berurah right now, not to put anyone on suspense, because we're learning like so many halachas over here, and there's so many different halachas all bunched together. It's actually highlighted in the Mishnah Berurah over here. If you want to eat while you're reclining, you're allowed to, Rashai. Who does he quote in the footnote? Beis Yosef. Magen Avraham also says it. Okay?
So why aren't they worried about the stira?
Which deer?
They're eating maror, which represents slavery, and he's
Yeah.
eating haseba. So they're not worried about the reason, the Torah. Curious why not.
What's the reason why you're allowed to? There's a very interesting lumdus as to why b'di'evid, if you reclined, then you would fulfill your obligation.
He's the Evid Lashon?
I mean, it seems yatsa. You'd still fulfill your obligation.
Mhm.
It's certainly no one will come along and say that it is halachically preferable to recline while consuming matzah, while consuming maror. You're not supposed to do such a thing.
He's he says Rashai.
Rashai.
He doesn't say Yatza.
It's permissible. Not that it's preferable. It's certainly not preferable.
Okay.
It's after all, like you just said, it's maror. You're not supposed to do such a thing. So look at what the Oz Vahadar explains why if you recline, you fulfill your obligation. There's a lot of concepts over here. It's hard to grasp everything, and it's hard to also split everything up, and it's very annoying. Just gotta jump in. It's Zeichel Avdus, because they were slaves. Okay. If you did it, you're okay. What's the reason? Since the Mar represents slavery, the Chachamim never enacted that you should recline. However, there's no prohibition to recline, and if you want to recline, you're allowed to. It's not prohibited. It's certainly not preferable, but it's not prohibited. The Magen Avram's language is, if you eat it while reclining, you will fulfill your obligation. So it's implied from the Magen Avram that lechachila, you should not recline. Okay. Again, we're trying to learn a Beis Yosef, and then questions are being asked, so I'm going to try to address them, since this is the quickest way to address it. I already went through all the Magen Avrams. This is probably where I got it from. I don't remember every single thing perfectly. I went through it just once. I didn't type up any notes yet or anything. But at least I remembered it certainly isn't l'chachila. It makes sense. And that's what they say over here. According to the Magen Avraham, it's not preferable to recline for the maror, since it's opposite of the intention of the maror. When you eat the maror, you have to remember what the maror represents. The slavery, the servitude, the work, that their lives were bitter. That's why l'chachila, you shouldn't recline. We see an interesting concept. We're going to learn about Korach, but we do recline for Korach, even though there's Mara in there. The Pri Chodesh asked this question. It's Tarti Desatri. How could you recline and fulfill your obligation with the Maror when the purpose is that it represents a slavery and that it's bitter? Furthermore, how are we dipping the matzah in the charosas? Charosas represents the slavery. He still says at the end of the day, it's good to see the Pri Chodesh inside, but at the end of the day, they didn't obligate you to recline, but if you did it, so then it would still be fine. He wants to say perhaps even lechatchila, which is very questionable. Sefer Bayis Bayis El Avi. Sefer Beis. No. Sefer Beis, the father of the Shalom Meshiv. And the Sefer Zichron L'Chaim. Okay, they talk about it more over there. Okay. Kapanim, general halacha is not like is going to be like the mashmos of the Magen Avram, and it is not going to be preferable to recline for the matzah. Let's keep moving over here. Next base Yosef says you don't make a beri priyadama. According to the Rashba, you would actually say an adam on the maror. We don't hold that way. I just found it interesting. Why don't we make a bracha on the charosis? Because it's secondary to the maror or the matzah. It's tafel. Tafel.
Not from there. It's not just the dip. It's just there's more on there. No.
What?
No, you were just saying you're supposed to dip it, right? It shouldn't be anything, just a taste of it. Right here, it's tafel, meaning it's mashma that there's something there.
There's something there, but it's secondary. When you have
I'm not
when
disagreeing
you
that
have
it's
French
secondary.
fries and ketchup, the ketchup's there. It's not the eker. That's why you only say the adam on the
There's
French
much
fries.
more ketchup on the.
We're going to learn also the details. When do you shake off the charosis? When do you not? We have to discuss that. It gets very confusing. So there's a lot of charosis going around. You got to know when to shake.
What's his point over here? Shloka Divrei Rashba.
Yeah, the Rashba says you have to say an adam on the maror. General halacha is not that way.
It's going on the maror.
I just wanted to share that.
Got it.
I thought it was interesting. I found it
Yeah,
interesting
no,
when I went
sure,
to it.
sure.
Okay. Do we need to see anything over here? Here's the Bach over here. They bring in front of you chazeres, charoisis, and the two dishes, even though the charosis is in a mitzvah. Rabbi Eliezer Bar Sadok says charosis said it is a mitzvah. So what, is the charosis a mitzvah or not? What are they arguing about? Everyone agrees you need to bring the charosis. What's the difference if it's a mitzvah or not? Even according to Rabbi Eliezer Bar Sadok, you don't make a bracha, even though it's a mitzvah. Rather, according to Tana Kama, it's not a mitzvah, and you're only bringing it mishum kapah. Gemara Pesachim Kuf Tezayin, there's a whole machlokas what that is. The simple explanation of that Gemara is it's a type of bug, like a worm. And therefore, the charosis gets rid of that. So the question is, why do you need that specifically in the Seder, not the rest of the year? However, according to Rabbi Elazar Bar Tzadok, it's the Zecher Latit. To remember that type of cement that they were using. And therefore, you would need it.
This is everything double. This is everything.
He says over here, in this Bach, it could be the intention is to show that when we dip, that we went from slavery, which is what the charosas represents, type of cement, and we went to be free, aka the matzah. When we dip the maror, our intention is to show that from the bitterness, where we came from the bitterness that we came from, and how they did that. aka they did that through the cement and all these things that we had to do. That is the Torah. The Chok Yaakov in Os Ches says the charosis destroys this type of poison that's in the maror. And you don't make a bracha until after you dip before you eat, so that it's called overlas yasin, that you're doing it before the mitzvah. Why don't you recline? He says over here also, it commemorates by the maror, it commemorates the work that they had to do, but if you want, you're allowed to. The Magen Avram points something out very important. What we just learned in the beginning of today's session and yesterday, that you're gonna eat for the motzei matzah from the top matzah and from the middle. That applies even on Shabbos. Even on Shabbos is a chiddush. He's quoting Siman Reish Ayin Daled. Does anyone remember what we learned in Reish Ayin Daled after we learned Hilchos Kiddush? Why this would be a chiddush?
I assume that's Lechem Mishnah.
Lechem Mishnah. Very good.
And
What did we learn about which bread, which hamotzi do we eat from? Which challah do we eat from on
so
Shabbos night?
Friday night, we're supposed to eat from the bottom.
Very good. David, you remember that? You do that every week?
Was it? Say one more time.
What challah do you cut from on Shabbos night? Do you remember what we learned? You practice it the right way?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, which challah do you cut from, the top or the bottom?
Top.
You do the top
Friday night.
on Shabbos night? Well, start doing the bottom. Because that's what we learned in Siman Reish Ayin Daled.
Didn't we learn Reish Ayin Daled, but Yontiv, you always do the top?
No.
No?
No.
The Yontiv might be different.
David, you don't remember that?
Wait, no, he's saying
It looks
the
like
bottom-
you're working
bottom
on the
of
job
Shabbos-
to me, if you ask me. That's why.
Oh, it's supposed to be working.
What is it?
That's why you got to come in person, David.
Neither the guest star appearance.
That's right. Here, Lechem Mishnah, Reish Ayin Daled. Here's the notes. Which challah should be cut from? Good question. Darche Moshe relates to these gedolim only cut from the lower challah Shabbos night. However, any other suda such as Shabbos day or on Yontif, one should cut the challah on top. There it is. It's in bold. I sent this to you guys somewhere in an email. My notes from what we learned. That's why it's in bold. This is halacha l'maisa. It should be pointed out that the Taz and the Bach, there's a whole list, and you should bring the lower challah closer to you when you say the bracha. That's why you get out of the shaila of ein ma'avir and ala mitzvahs. Okay, when Yontif falls out on Shabbos, one should cut from the bottom challah. There it is. Your Yontif question in bold. Oz v'hadim Mishnah Berurah, footnote 6 in Siman Reish Ayin Daled, as well as the Mavakshi Torah Yontif, pages 454. What?
And that's why the Magen Avraham had to say what he had to say.
Page 454-26. That's why the Magen Avraham had to say what he had to say. And that's why technology is created. Moving right along. You dip because of the kapah. Perish min toilas sheish b'soichel v'yamos b'cheres. It's a type of worm that dies from the charoisis, says the Taz. Cryptic stuff, deep ideas. Comes the Eishel Avram on Shabbos as a reason for Kabbalistic reasons to cut from the bottom one. Shabbos night, there it is, the Eishel Avram, specifying what the intention of the Magen Avram was in case we didn't already know. Here it is, in the Magen Avram, if you ate the maror while reclining, you would fulfill your obligation. David? Start cutting from the bottom.
Friday night.
Shabbos
Cut
night.
from the bottom you cut from the bottom on Shabbos night.
Shabbos night.
Shabbos.
Every other time is the top challah.
What's enough? I mean, why would you not do it if the first night of Yontif or whatever? If Yontif falls out on Shabbos, why would you not cut the?
You would.
That overrules everything.
That's
What
right.
would make you think? What would you make? What would,
Do we have these recordings on the website? I don't know if we have this. Hilchos Shalosh Shudis 691 Della 692 Malav Malka. We don't have him. David, you're not held accountable. Yeah. Okay, but now you know. You do from the bottom. Always bottom on Shabbos night, no matter what. Every other time is top. That's the easy way to remember it.
Unless it's Pesach night.
Oh, yeah, this is Pesach night. Yeah, yeah. Pesach night, you have a lot of action going on over here. It's a little different. It's a little different. Pesach night. Seder night changes everything, you know. Okay, this is everything on the page of the Shulchan Aruch. The truth is, believe it or not, this isn't even the end of Sif Aleph. It's a very long sif. It takes patience, diligence, consistency to properly learn this sif. Time. I went through all of this before. Everything on the Shulchan Aruch on the tour over here. All right. What we didn't do yet is everything from here on. This is all korech. And I want to show you something else also. The tour in this version and a lot of versions, what they do is they put letters to like add sifim and to like break it up. So if you take a look over here, you'll think what we ended with today, you don't make a bracha because it's tafel, this is the end of sifal. They put a base over here for sif base. It's not true. They give a brief thing of sif base and they go straight back to sifal. This is all korech. So I wanted to split this up because this is already a boatload of information, right? With the charosis, with the maror, with the reclining. I mean, you have so many different. I was even thinking in my head to try to just split everything up. I said it's going to be so complicated, so much effort for me. I don't care. I'm trying to do it to make it easier for everyone, but it's too much effort. It's too much time. I've got so much going on, so many other things. So, so we're going to come back to the Korach. Tomorrow we're going to do the Mishnah Brewers on what we just learned. And also I put up another 4 shiurim yesterday on the Seder is a time to tell our children what we live for. Amelis b'Torah, the punish for bittul Torah, and loving Torah. Those last two were very short, only like 5 minutes, 3 minutes. The Amelis b'Torah was 30 minutes. And today, hopefully I'm going to have time to put up one on Resifus b'Torah. That means learning without breaks, without interruptions. And then the last one will be it's going to be one more. That's going to go up how Torah is above time. And that will end the 10-part series of my favorite pasuk in the Torah, the Hagisa bo yomam v'layla, of learning Torah day and night, which is 40 pages also typed up, that I typed up. It's going to be it's a major part of the Sefer Yeshua. It could really be its own Sefer. It's a condensed version. So it's a 10-part series, and you got to follow when it says P1, P2, P3 after. And I don't know what you listen to, but the one on why it's important to learn Torah, Amelis b'Torah, and the sweetness of Torah are very, very, very important for anyone to know. And I got a lot of chizuk from learning it. And now I've already seen, since I started saying it, I started finding a couple extra minutes here and there to utilize times that I would have wasted time waiting online for a carpool for my kid, whatever. Other times that